we're no longer getting dopamine from the sources of how men should be getting dopamine from. Our buddy Noah Ryan has a great Substack article called I think it's called the Dopamine Detox or the Dopamine Reset. And it was like, it used to be meat and berries. It used to be hunting outside or jumping in a cold river or experiencing a sunshine, reading a book, these like incredible natural sources, things like processed foods, scrolling on social media, consuming nicotine. You're getting dopamine spikes that are, I know nicotine is, the spike is like 2 to 10 times higher than the natural sources of dopamine too.
Yeah.
So it's like, instead of using, and with nicotine, I don't think either you or I is trying to make a judgment on the compound itself. I think there's a lot of arguments for and against it.
Yeah.
It's more about your relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
And we were both at the point, not to speak for you, but I was sun up to sundown from the moment I got out of bed to the time I was going to sleep at night, having a pouch in at all times.
Yeah.
So your baseline is now that 6 to 12 milligram pouch constantly, day in and day out. So your dopamine is completely fried. So that willingness to actually take action, why would you take action if you could just sit in bed and throw that in and get that same dopamine hit that you should be getting going to the gym or going outside?
Yeah, and you kind of, with that, it's almost like the rat with the cheese. Like, you're just like rewarding, certain behaviors. So if it is centered around work, then maybe you ride like the upslope of like the first month where you're like seeing very positive outcomes with certain things. But as soon as you start to lose control of your ability to actually manage like the, optimization, like aspect of maybe using a nicotine pouch every now and then you're like, just throwing one in randomly and getting that same, reward mechanism of, you're just laying in bed, but you didn't like do anything to have that dopamine hit.
Definitely.
Just throwing your brain and your body, all the signals that your body is trying to balance out at once, you're just throwing it way off.
Totally, man. And it's like, I don't think the sweet spot, I don't think men are meant to be these like overly optimized biohackers.
No.
And I don't think we're not meant to be complete degenerates either. But I think something that might be really helpful for someone listening to this is just to really sit there and get quiet and just think about and just make a list on a piece of paper. Like, is there anything that you're doing currently that you shouldn't be doing? And are there any vices or substances or things that maybe just have too much control over your life? Like, it could be, pornography, it could be scrolling social media, it could be nicotine pouches, it could be kratom, it could be too much coffee, it could be, I don't know, I don't necessarily know what that thing is for you, and then like, I remember asking myself, what do I feel like I'm missing internally that I need to opt for this stuff?
Yeah.
And I think the answer that I was getting hit with was probably just fear of failure in doing a lot of things from a creation standpoint and business standpoint that I had never done before, and was just really insecure and thought that, these substances will give me that temporary hit to make me feel like I'm invincible. And then you pay the piper on the other end of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I feel like as you're talking, I was just thinking about my relationship with this stuff as well, where even just like coffee, for example, I remember the first time I had a cup of coffee, it was like my freshman year of college. And that first cup, it literally, my mental approach going into the library after that first cup, it was like insane. I didn't grow up having sodas either. So that was like literally one of my first times ever having caffeine. So for me, my relationship with like substances started then. And I never had any problems with anything. Like, I didn't smoke anything or like do anything until later in college, or like I didn't do pouches or anything like that until after college. And then like, I think it was like kind of when we got down here 2 years ago, like just trying a nicotine pouch for the first time skiing. And I was like, oh, this thing actually is like, gives you a bit of a different feel, a little bit of a buzz. And yeah, then just using it for work stuff. And it's so easy to kind of lose just the context of it being helpful. And then the other side of the coin where it's like actually draining your creative capacity and just being a crutch for something else.
Yeah.
I think for me, what made me, because you mentioned me like just stopping cold turkey, what got me to the other side of realizing that I just like wanted to be sober minded was just wanting to like think more clearly and more
Mm,
slowly and not feel like I had to constantly be moving fast to be effective. And that's like always how I felt whenever I would even just a coffee or caffeine.
mm.
It was like I needed to be fast to be effective, and I just don't think that's true. And I don't work well. Like I'm just more of a blue sky thinking, like likes to see the big field, and I feel like I lose that when I'm like overly stimulated.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I feel like I was losing that creative capacity because I was taking things that were draining my dopamine,
Yeah.
the nicotine pouches, caffeine, um, and like you, it's like, 200 milligrams was like a all in a day's worth.
Oh, dude, I'm getting out of bed with 200 milligrams and popping in 2 Zins just to get me to the gym in the morning.
Yeah.
I just remember that, and I think that I think this is, I think this conversation is rooted in truth and honesty, and I think the direction of this show is to like, for both of us to fully root this show in truth and honesty, and not that we never weren't, but just being more vulnerable and transparent. And I think that is something that we've talked a lot about off camera is how you just see a lot of, I don't wanna say, I don't know if the word is hiding, but people acting like they need to be perfect because they have a brand or persona,
Yeah.
and we're all just broken people, honestly, trying to figure it out, and the more vulnerable and open we are, but I think it's a good reminder for everyone to just, like, take the advice that you're seeing on the internet with a grain of salt, because there's all things that we're going through. Probably the influencer that you're following is potentially hiding something too, not but,
Yeah.
um
Makes me think about, this is a sidebar, but we've been reading through Luke in our Bible study together, and
the lamp.
uh, there's a Luke 15 is all about these different lost anecdotal lost stories, allegories of just people being lost, or using these stories to tell how heaven rejoices when these like for example, like lost sheep, the one lost
Mm,
sheep out of the 100 herd, they've got the 99, and the one lost sheep is found and heaven rejoices. Or when one sinner repents, heaven rejoices, but the 99 who proclaim to be righteous, like heaven doesn't really
totally.
like care. So in that sense, like I think that's kind of what we're talking about with this is like, you and I aren't perfect, not pretending to be. I think we wear who we are on our sleeves and just try to
Yeah.
be examples of that. Like there's things that are happening that we just feel like are really relevant because we've either struggled with them, overcome them, or, are dealing with them.
Yeah.
I think it's important because yeah, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people are dealing with a lot of things that they just keep suppressed and they don't bring it into the light. And ultimately the power healing happens when you put something into the light
Yes.
and you actually like talk about it.
100%, dude. That's why, it's like Satan wants you to hide in the shadows,
Oh,
right?
dude, he wants you scared, ashamed. He wants
Yeah.
you so ashamed that you're afraid to talk about it with your best friend.
I'm the most messed up person ever. No one else could relate to this, right?
Yeah.
Like, I literally have a group chat with 10 buddies called Champions of Chastity for guys that are, like, trying to not masturbate or watch or, like, engage in celibate practices with their wife or with their girlfriends pre-marriage, like, primarily a Christian group chat. And, I just started noticing this pattern where, like, the guys would go a couple days without, like, text because we would, like, text each other, like, if we had made it another day or if we slipped up, and I would notice that guys, when they would slip up, they would just stop responding in the group chat, right? So
Mm.
you can kind of assume, and so what I started doing was, like, when I slipped up and started, my new streak, I just started sending day 1, day 2, day 3, all the way up to where I'm at now. And we all decided as a group, like, we should be sending our days, whether we slip up or we make it. And the amount of guys, now that they truly have that accountability every day, it's like everyone has been so much more accountable too,
Yeah.
which is to what you're saying. It's like get out of the shadows and find a great group of friends, colleagues, whoever that are really gonna keep you accountable. That's what real friends do is they call you out when you need to be called out. They support you when you need to be supported. They don't lie to your face. They tell you the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something too about actually speaking the truth over somebody. Like
Mhm.
if you see somebody's caught in a lie, like how quickly can a lie just wrap itself up within you internally and just like actually completely distort your own identity, your own interactions with people. And like,
Yeah.
if that doesn't get resolved, I think it's kind of just a ticking time bomb, you know?
100%, dude. I've talked to Dana about this, but like there were one of the biggest catalysts for me wanting to quit nicotine was just like the way that I would hide my nicotine usage, where I
Yeah.
would like be around her and I would be like, "Oh, I have to go to the bathroom," and then like throwing in casually when we're in the middle of dinner. And it's like it's so easy to justify where it's like it's just nicotine, like this is the worst thing that I do.
Yeah.
But then for her as your girlfriend who you're going to build a life in the future with, it's like, well, what else are you not honest with your word about? Like, if you can't keep your word to me about this, like, yeah, it just ends up being a snowball and a catalyst to so many other things.
Yeah.
And that was that was a big catalyst for me, just finally putting it behind me of just being like, are you actually going to be a man that's true to your word? Or are you just going to continue to say all these cool things and put a microphone on yourself and advertise for the right soundbite, but behind closed doors in the shadows, like you're not actually practicing what you preach? I
Mm.
was just so worried about being a fraud.
Well, dude, kudos to you for just making the changes. And I
Thanks,
mean,
man.
dude, it's super impressive. I feel like one of the things that I've noticed too is I don't think it's a coincidence that in August these changes started happening. And then since then, I feel like your relationship with God has taken
Mm,
like 3 to 5x
mhm,
increase in just like your appetite
mm,
for like consuming more more scripture and
yeah,
just wanting to be around like that type of those types of people and that type of content.
mhm,
So to me, I'm like, that's not a coincidence. I
yeah,
feel like you've kind of like tuned back into like the things that actually fill you up.
totally, man. Well, I think I think I literally got my antenna back, right?
Yeah.
After so many repetitions of not ultimately doing the things that I should have been doing to develop that antenna, you just slowly start to decay at it and you don't realize until you look in the mirror. Like if you're looking in the mirror and you're not proud and smiling back at what you see, and I think that's an exercise that everyone should do is like smiling at yourself in the mirror. Like if you truly don't like that person that you see and you aren't proud of your body of work, like there's something that you should explore, I think.
Definitely.
Like if you're not proud of like your human, your actual vessel, like more than, you know, it's way more impactful than putting on a suit or a nice pair of clothing or driving a nice car, like your body and the way that you present yourself to the
Mhm.
world. Like if I can't take care of myself, I don't trust myself. So how could you as my business partner trust me if I can't even take care of the most basic thing?
Yeah. And that stuff compounds on itself too. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are drawn to stoicism is
Mm,
there's this physical component to it, or maybe that's just how it's been packaged up and marketed to
mm,
us in the West, but it feels like there is this physical component to the mental and spiritual